Hi everybody, welcome to the Actors Academy. Thank you for tuning in today. Today we're going to be talking about how to act realistically with our emotions. So we know as actors what we're going to have is we're going to have emotions. You know, if you're going to be in a movie, you're going to be in a TV show, you want to do theater work, any of these platforms, you're going to have emotions. Sometimes you're going to be happy, sometimes you're going to be sad, sometimes you're going to be angry. You're going to have emotions. And this is a question that I've been getting a lot lately, where people have been asking me, they're saying, well, how can I do sadness? How can I do happiness? How can I do anger? And everyone has some emotion that sometimes is a little bit trickier or a little bit easier for them. So some people are a little bit easier to be angry. Some people, it's a little bit easier for them to be happy. Some, it's a little bit easier for them to be sad. Just because you can do anger really well doesn't mean you're always an angry person. Just because you can do sadness doesn't mean you're always a sad person. Sometimes people try and relate that. Well, if I can do anger really well, then I must be an angry person. No, it's not that at all. It's just that's something that you happen to do really well. Something to realize though, first before all this, is what's the most important thing. And one of the most important things for an actor that you have to do is you always have to be realistic. This is one of the most important things that every actor has to have, and that's what they need to realize. For being realistic is what you always have to have as your basis. If you're ever doing anything and you're like, oh, it's unrealistic, then you want to throw it out the window. You always want to be realistic 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, you'll have things like Disney Channel where you're going to be hyper realistic. So when you're happy, you're extra happy. When you're sad, you're extra sad. When you're mad, you're extra mad. But it's still with a lightheartedness. For Disney Channel or things of that nature. But 90% of the time, you're going to be dealing with work where you have to be realistic. You know, if it's something on HBO, if it's certain things on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, you're going to have to be realistic. That's what you're aiming for. So 90% of the time, you're going to have to be very realistic. It's easier if you're able to do things realistically to go and be hyper-realistic when you're on Disney Channel, things like that. But if you're very good at being hyper-realistic and that's all you've practiced and done, then it's a lot harder to be realistic. So if you can be realistic, it's a lot easier to be hyper-realistic. If you're hyper-realistic, it's a lot harder to go and be realistic if that's all you're used to. So that's one of the most important things to realize. We're always trying to be realistic. That's what you always have to have in the back of your mind. The second thing to realize that we're always trying to do is we're always trying to be ourselves. Anytime you're acting, you have to be yourself. People always think when they're talking about characters that they're creating, they're thinking, oh, I don't know how to create a character. I don't know what to do. You have to be yourself. You never have to try and create a character and be something else. This idea of creating a character has created a lot of trouble for actors where their acting isn't realistic. Just think about this. Anytime you're acting, you have to be yourself. That's all you have to be. You have to just be you in the situation that's being given. Now, when you're trying to go and create different characters, it's not going about creating anything abstract or different or weird. It's literally just managing your emotions and what you have, how much emotion you're giving weight to and how much you're not giving weight to. So for example, let's imagine you have to play a character who is relatively pretty angry all the time and they have a big chip on their shoulder, right? Well, let's say for you, 95% of the time in your life, you're a pretty happy person. You're very positive. You're very outgoing, right? 5% of the time though, you know, you do get angry, you do get annoyed, you do have a chip on your shoulder. Maybe it's when you go to work, you hate the people you work with. Maybe it's certain people you meet at school. Maybe it's life situations. It could be anything. What you have to do is you still have to be yourself because ultimately, remember, we're trying to be realistic and we have to be ourselves. That's what we're always aiming for. Meryl Streep said, acting, all you're doing is just playing a different version of yourself. It's still you though. That's all you're being. It's just you, but a different version of you. So this is how you would do a different version. So for example, you, 95% of the time in your real everyday life, you're a happy person. 5% of the time, okay, you're not so happy. You got, life things going on. If you had to play a character who was happy most of the time, that'd be very easy for you because that's what you naturally do. That's how you naturally are. But let's say you have to play this character who is not happy all the time. They have a chip on their shoulder. Well, for this character, you already know that 5% of the time that's how you are. All you have to do is you have to increase this 5% and make it more of a 50, 60, 70%. But you're still being you. And this creates the new character. This creates the thing that we call, oh, it's a character, it's not you, but it still is you. It's you, that 5%, but you're expanding it to being 70% of the time. That would create a new character. So for example, if 5% of the time you have a chip on your shoulder and things annoy you, the simplest things annoy you, you drop your food on the ground and you get really pissed off because you've been having a horrible day, well, that 5% of the time you're increasing it to 70%. So it could be you drop your food, you get upset. You walk over to your sink, it's not working, you get really upset. You stub your toe, you get really upset. You get upset about the simplest little things because you're expanding that emotion to be more, but it's still you. You're just using that 5% and expanding it more. You're not trying to create a different side of your anger. For example, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he's acting, his anger is going to be different than your anger. You don't have to try and replicate his anger. Say Tom Holland. Tom Holland, with his characters, and if they're angry, you don't have to mimic his anger. It's just that's Tom Holland's version of anger. Your version of anger may be different. Meryl Streep, her version of anger is going to be different than your version of anger. You don't have to copy hers, you just have to do your own. When you try to copy someone else, say Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you tried to copy Arnold Schwarzenegger's anger, you would look very weird because it wouldn't be you. It works for him because that's how he is. So for you, when it comes to your acting, you have to realize that it's just you. Meryl Streep said this beautifully, saying that acting is just being another version of yourself. So you have that version of you where you're angry, you're just expanding it more. So I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you can be up to date with everything. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped you. Also, I'm going to be leaving the 10-hour acting masterclass down in the description below if you guys are interested in that. It takes 2 minutes to sign up, so if you're interested, it'll be down there. All right, guys. Bye-bye.